Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here in Hyderabad. I am so happy to be here. You heard I'm speaking in 10 countries this year, but I'm speaking only twice in India, and both times I'm here for Amit. Where is Amit? I really want to congratulate him and the entire team for putting this together. Stand up if you're part of Amit's team, folks. Stand up. I think Amit himself is not here. I don't know where he is, but he's here somewhere. Thank you for being here. I want to thank Angela for sharing some thoughts about diversity and inclusion. It's something that I care a lot about and have been talking about a lot for many years, and I have a little bit on that topic as well when we're speaking. So I have some slides that I'm going to share with you. I've actually shared them already on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, would you please take out your phones and share my last tweet, which tells you all the slides that I'm presenting, as well as my best social media tips on one sheet of paper. So if you're on Twitter, I'm at Sree. Just pull out your phones and just hit retweet right now, and let's get that out in the world so people can participate and see what we're talking about. One of the other things you can do right now is if you are on LinkedIn, just raise your hands if you're on LinkedIn. Just raise your hand. Look around you. Who knows what they're doing on LinkedIn? See all the hands start falling down. I think there are 1 hand, 2, 3 hands up. So we'll talk about LinkedIn in a little bit and how you can use it more. But one thing you can do is to download the LinkedIn app, either on Android or iPhone. And please do that while we're waiting. If you already have it on your phone, we're going to do a neat little trick in a minute. So my presentation's on a slide, as you can see. There's a QR code that you can use. When I was working at the Metropolitan Museum, people would say to me, how come you don't use the QR code on all the art in the museum? And my answer was, I hate QR codes because they're not very useful. Because in America, we don't use them the way we use them here and in East Asia. In America, we use them very little. And the reason that I now have it on the screen is because something changed last year. The iPhone built in the QR code reader into the camera. So if you have an iPhone, you can just point the iPhone at the QR code and you can get my presentation and download it right now. If you're on the Android, you need the Google app, and you can point the Google app lens, as they call it, onto the presentation, and you can download it that way. Otherwise, you already have it, as you know, on the tweet. You also have the URL to my presentation. It's just bit.ly/Sree-Praxis. I'm going to talk a lot about big picture stuff, but I'm hoping to give you some very specific, handy advice. So the best thing you can do for today is to, on a sheet of paper or on your phone or laptop, make quick notes, what I call an action checklist. Names, people, tools, tips, just write them down, and you can check them out on your own time. Because this conference is filled with amazing speakers with lots to share. The best thing you can have is this kind of annotated list of things you want to try out later. So one of the things I want you to try is bit.ly, bit.ly, just write it down, and you can create your own customized URL shortener. There are many URL shorteners, but this one's the best, and you can do bit.ly/Sree-Praxis to see all the tips that I have today. And then please do connect with me. My email address is there as well. And we can connect, as I said, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, etc. Maybe the most useful thing I can do is invite you to my closed Facebook group. It's called Sree's Advanced Social, and it has more than 8,000 people who work in digital and social, including people at Facebook, at LinkedIn, at Twitter, YouTube, etc., all in one place. And it's a fantastic community, not because of me, but because of people in the community. And I encourage all of you to think about, if you're going to do storytelling, it's not just the physical communities that we have. How do we build and curate our own digital communities? And so take a look at mine. You can go on Facebook right now and ask to join. It takes a second, and then I'll add you to it afterward. And then you can see there's also a link to my best tips all in one place. So whenever I speak, I always start with always be charging your phone. Who here is charging their phone right now? Everybody should be, right? I carry around multiple power banks, as you call them here in America. We call them battery packs. I carry 8 to 10 in my bag at all times. So if you need to borrow one today, you can borrow one from me. And I believe the power bank is bigger and more important than the vote bank. So that's something that I like to think about. Second is always be connecting. Connect with each other. Connect with me. When you don't need people, connect with them. And when they're there, when you need them, they'll be there for you. If you wait till you need them, it's too late, right? So connect. You've got such great people in the audience, such great people on stage. Connect with them now. As you see them speaking, tweet at them, connect with them, etc. So we're going to do a connecting exercise right now. Please pull out your LinkedIn apps. If everybody can do this, I'm also going to do this on stage. Everybody go to your LinkedIn app. If you don't have the LinkedIn app, it's okay. Just look over a friend's shoulder. Okay, so who has a LinkedIn app? Just raise your hand. Great. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so LinkedIn app people, go into LinkedIn, and you see at the bottom there are these icons of two heads. Does everybody see that on the front of the LinkedIn? Yes? So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to go to the very top. It says Find Nearby. Click on that and enable Bluetooth. And then you're going to see some magic on the screen if this works. You know, whenever anybody does a demo, it's very dangerous to do a demo, live demo, but here we are. Look at this as people populate the screen, right? So you go on LinkedIn, you click on the two icons at the bottom, and then you click on Find Nearby. And now look, Rakesh, Rohini, Priyanka, Subramaniam, Ronak, etc. are all showing up. Look at this. You can all connect with each other right now. So I'm going to invite them to connect with me. They're going to invite me to connect with them. Look at this. I don't think I've ever had so many people connect. Isn't that awesome? And imagine you're doing this at every meeting before you start. You do this little trick. It's the Find Nearby trick. Now, some of you are worried about privacy and are saying, oh my God, is this another way for people to pick up people at bars and things like that? It is not, because it only works on Bluetooth, and it only works if you and the other person is on this page at the same time. And the answer is almost nobody is on this page most of the time, right? So write this down. If you were able to do it, great. If you're not able to do it, don't worry. And make sure your Bluetooth is turned on. Any questions from anybody about that? So play with this. There are lots of tricks that we'll try to do either when I'm speaking here or when we do a little Q&A with Resham a little later. So always be connecting. And finally, always be collecting. That is using your camera as a collection device so you can connect and collect information. There are so many slides coming at you, right? There were slides from Angela, then my slides, and then dozens and dozens of other presentations. You need to have the best 10 slides on your phone. So make sure you're using your phone, picking it up, and taking pictures as you see slides you like. That way, this conference, instead of being 50 presentations, is 25 slides that you love. And so keep that with you. So again, that's how you do the LinkedIn app on the left and join the Facebook group on the right. So again, you can take a picture of this and then you can remember how to do this. Kiruba gave you and gave me a wonderful introduction and said all these very nice things about me and my work in the US, and I'm very proud of it. I'm also very proud of my work in India. I was part of the team that helped launch Business Today, and then I worked for Prannoy Roy and The World This Week and NDTV's operations and all that stuff. But one of the things that you're never ready for is that life happens. They say that adversity builds character, and I lost 2 jobs in 12 months. And you don't usually, in India at least, and certainly in America, we don't talk about people losing their jobs. When I lost my job, the last sets of people I told were my children and my parents, because I don't think my parents were ready for a 46-year-old who was unemployed. I also told my in-laws last, and I want to say that the amazing support I got from my family was very heartening to see. I want to tell you that my father-in-law is visiting from Chennai. He came all the way here to just spend 24 hours with me. He's here, retired IPS officer KV Unnikrishnan. Please stand up, sir. He's 81 years old, and he came out just to be here. And Amit gave him a special guest ID, so he's now a praxitian, I think is the right pronunciation. So I urge you as PR professionals to connect and build your network when you don't need it so that it's there when you need it for what we're talking about. So you can see what I did was I went online and I said to people, I've lost my job, tell me what to do next. I gave people a form to fill out, a Google form. More than 1,400 people filled in this form. And there were some very good ideas and some terrible ideas. But at the end, it was really the worst moment of my life became the best moment of my life. I got this global digital hug. What I'm going to share now are 8 ideas on how we can master storytelling. 8 ideas, they're simple, I hope they're clear and easy to follow as well. So the first is to know and conquer the scarcest resource. When you hear about resources that are scarce, you will think about things like clean air, clean water, traffic-free roads are the scarcest resource. But another way to think about the scarcest resource is what Les Hinton said. Les is the former publisher of the Wall Street Journal, and he said the scarcest resource is human attention. And if you love that quote, tweet him right now. At Les Hinton, we're talking about you at Praxis 7. Just tweet him right now, and you don't need him for anything, and he suddenly sees your tweet. It comes in, it's a nice tweet. So get into that habit, but think about this idea that everything I'm going to talk about stems from this problem of human attention. How do we get it? Now, one of the things that happened to me was when I lost my jobs. It was very traumatic, but in a way, I was able to bounce back because I became a millionaire, but I became a millionaire in unread Gmail messages, which is not something to be very proud of. And you may have seen a story about Priyanka Chopra having 250,000 unread Gmail messages. And somebody ran a story that I beat her in the number of unread Gmail messages or unread messages. This is the problem. There's too much going on. And how do we cut through the clutter? Because we think we're doing all this great social media, but the dirty secret is almost no one will see what we do. Almost everyone will miss almost everything you do on social. So you have to understand that what you're doing is not going to work, especially because there's a twist at the end that you see there now, right? Until you make a mistake. Almost everyone will miss everything until you make a mistake. So having to be extra careful when you're doing your social. I spend 6 to 10 minutes on every tweet I write. Why? Because social media is the only thing I do today that can get me fired today. Social media is the only thing I do today that can get me divorced today. And so I'm extra careful, and I recommend all folks who are in comms be extra careful. This is part of my theme that social media is hard. I once did a tweet that got 185,000 impressions, right? That's a really big number. I was very proud. I said, okay, I'm going to get lots of new followers. You know how many followers I got? One new follower out of all of those impressions. Tells you social is hard. Getting attention is hard. There was a day I got 225 new followers on Twitter. Today I expect I'll come close if you follow me on Twitter. So I thought, wow, I've really cracked it. I've got great content. I'm just going to share this kind of content again and again until I realized I also lost 158 people the same way, including a guy, a Desi guy I gave a job to, helped his family. It's such a problem I can't even look at the screen right now. I get upset, right? Why would somebody who owes you so much decide to unfollow you on Twitter? That's the reality of social media. Everybody thinks it's easy and it's so much fun, but it's hard. So understanding the scarce resource is important. I'm going to get to my second point. My second point goes to the idea of magazine covers. I think we all love magazine covers. India loves magazines and magazine covers. And I want to show you a couple of clever magazine covers because cleverness is very important in magazine world, right? So here are 2 from America of their cover boys, cover men as Jesus Christ, right? The Passion of Muhammad Ali from 1968 and The Passion of Kanye West from 2006. It's a similar idea, but it's very clever and questionable at the same time. How about this Filmfare cover? I love this. If you can see at the bottom, it says, One Tuka 4. W-O-N Tuka 4. Anybody remember the movie Ram Lakhan? Maybe you're all too young for it. But I thought it was very clever. Or this India Today cover, Prices on Fire, about the price of onions. So cleverness is very useful in the magazine world. In digital, however, there's another attribute instead of cleverness that I want to share with you. It comes from John Huey, who was in charge of all of Time Inc. for many years, and he said, "Clear is the new clever." In digital, clear is the new clever. Every chance you get, instead of being clever, be clear. This goes to everything from your Twitter handle, your Twitter bio, where you live, where you work. Be really clear so people can follow you on Instagram. I try to find many of you on Instagram. It's hard to find you folks because you've got your handle, which is fine. It can be inventive. But your Twitter name, the name that you use, should be clear. Who are you? So that people can follow you. You should give people a reason not to unfollow you or not to ignore you. And that's why cleverness matters. So that was point number 2. Number 3 is tell a story. We talk about storytelling, but that means actually telling a story. And I want to tell you about a wonderful Indian-American author named Priya Parker, @PriyaParker on Twitter. You can again tweet her and say, @PriyaParker, we're talking about you at Praxis 7. Come speak at Praxis 8. And Priya is an expert on many things, but she wrote a book about why we gather. She said that in a world of digital, why do we need to meet in person? Look at Praxis. Why are we here? Couldn't we have done this on a Google Hangout? Couldn't we have met on Skype or Zoom or something? We could have, but it's so much better in person, right? So she says, always start all your events with a story. Don't start with logistics. And that's a problem that I have. You saw all the logistical information I gave you before telling you a story. And she got that idea from going to a funeral in America where everyone was crying and the man stood up ready to speak. Everyone was listening. And he said, whoever has the blue Mazda parked outside, please move it. The lights are on, something like that. And then said the bathrooms are over here, the water is over here, and just lost the room, right? People are ready for a story, and he didn't tell a story. So always tell a story. So I'm going to tell you a story and connect that to the social media world. You may know that New York is considered a dangerous place. We like to say the safest big city in America, but it's still not the safest place in the world. But in 1981, it was even more dangerous than it is now. And in 1981, a man moved to New York. And he had to write to his roommate that I'm coming to New York. So he wrote a letter. In those days, there was no Instagram, no Twitter, no email, no fax. So he wrote a letter. And in the letter, he said, I'm coming on this date and time. He shows up and knocks on the door, and there's nobody there. He knocks and knocks and knocks and knocks. No one there. So he picks up his suitcase, goes into that alley on West 109th Street in New York, and sleeps on the suitcase. Imagine you are that person. It's 1981. It's not that cold, but it's still, not warm. And you're lying on top of your suitcase in an alley in a new city, and you don't know what comes next. 27 years later, that young man became president of the United States. That was Barack Obama's first night in New York City. Imagine if he was in your building. If you saw somebody knocking on the door with a suitcase and just making a noise, would you say, oh, that's the next president, let me help you, sir? No, you won't. Or if you see some guy sleeping in your alley, would you say, that's the next president, let me get you some dinner? No, you won't, right? We are trained to look at people and make judgments about them. And you'll say, well, what has this got to do with anything we're talking about? First of all, that's a fantastic story, and you will never forget the story about Barack Obama. But the second thing is, there's a parallel in our world of digital. In digital, we assign values to people based on how many followers they have. If they have 200 followers, we assign them a value. If they have 1,000 followers, if they have 1 lakh followers, 10 lakhs, we think they're more important. That's one of the original sins of social media, was the social media counter. The follower count was an original sin of social media. And that has caused so much distraction in what we're trying to do. There's so many people who are influential and great in what they do, they just don't happen to have a lot of followers. And people ignore them at their peril, and that's always upsetting. So please keep this story in mind. Next time you look at someone's social media account and decide to ignore them because they have not as many followers as you think they should, please think about this story. Number 4, visuals rule. You would never forget that story of Obama but you will really never forget it because there was a visual, right? So in everything you do, please practice using visuals, and that's why you all have these great cameras. The Android cameras are often better than the iPhone cameras. Shoot pictures, practice, like you're in this room. Many of you are in PR on a regular basis. You're covering events. Your boss is speaking. Imagine I was an important speaker. Imagine I was somebody of consequence. How would you shoot this? How would you cover this event? What would you do? Would you just sit where you are? No, you'd stand up. You'd walk around. Watch the professional photographers. They're walking. They're moving around. Don't stay glued to your seats the next 2 days. Get up, move around. Use your camera. Can you tell a story with your camera? Keep practicing. It makes a difference. So what happens is, all day long, people are on their phones and just going like this, right? They're just scrolling on the content. So I created this term that I use called thumb stopper. Let's create thumb stoppers. Anytime you're posting something, what is the thumb stopper that's going to stop people from ignoring your content? And on screen you see a dear friend of mine named Mitra Kalita. She is head of everything on CNN that is not on TV. So all the social and web and internet and all that stuff. And you can tweet at her right now. Take a picture of this, tweet at her and say, @Mitra Kalita, we're talking about you here at Praxis 7. So a couple of tools I put up there to use. Pic Collage, I love. Canva. Anyone here using Canva for their work? Look at that. Look, so many people, right? Canva works great on the phone. So I encourage you to do that. I love another one called Typorama app, which allows you to put text. They also have another tool called Videorama that allows you to put text on video. There's so many tools that you can play with. This is my wife, Rupa, who we were in Italy and she said something and I tweeted it out. She always says, she'll say something and say, please don't tweet that, and I'll say, too late. And so you can follow her. She's at Rupa online. She's an Arjuna Award winner in rifle shooting. So I'm the world's best behaved husband. You would think, oh, thank you. You think I'm the world's best behaved husband because my wife is an Arjuna Award winner in rifle shooting, but that's not the reason alone. Second is my father-in-law is an IPS officer, so he knows how to shoot, but that's also not the reason why I'm the world's best behaved husband. The reason, my mother-in-law won a Tamil Nadu pistol shooting championship when Rupa was in her belly. This is we like to say, the positive version of the Abhimanyu story. You know, the Abhimanyu story does not end well, but Rupa's story ended well. She was captain of the Oxford shooting team and Rhodes Scholar and all of that. She's an expert on careers and strategy at the kind of highest level. She works for a company called Harman. They make the JBL speakers, and her boss is an Indian guy named Dinesh Paliwal, who is a fantastic boss. And when we heard Angela talk about diversity and inclusion, the kind of attention that Dinesh gives to these topics is really important. So I've got a couple of other tools that you can see on there. Anyway, you have this presentation already, so you have all the slides. It's on my Twitter feed, as I said. Now, you heard Kiruba say that it's not unusual to see someone present on the phone, but it is, I think, fairly unusual to have somebody make everything that you see on the phone. The entire presentation was made on the phone. Why? Because I believe that we are not doing enough with our phones. You'll say, that's weird, because we're always on our phones all the time. It's true, but we're not using it to create. We're using it to consume. But our consumers are on their phone all the time. And most of us, and most of our brands and our agencies and all that are creating beautiful content using beautiful laptops, 2 monitors, 3 monitors. But that's not how people are consuming the content. And I want all of us to use our phone more. And that's why this presentation was made on the phone. So please think about that, how you're using. You're certainly consuming on it, but can we create more things? Can we do more things with it? Number 5, 3 qualities of the best communicators and storytellers today. There are 3 things that I encourage you to think about. 1 is confidence, transparency, and generosity. Right? If you want to do storytelling in the digital age, you want to think about these 3 factors. Are you confident about what you're posting? Are you able to share things when you say, this is the best X, Y, and Z, I really like this, or this is great? When I say, as I said, I'm doing a Twitter thread. If you find my last tweet, you can see it's on a thread about my visit to Hyderabad. And it starts with a quote from an American TV show called Seinfeld, where they say, "Coach to India, economy to India, the only way to go," right? And through that, you'll see when I say, I love Hyderabad, it's one of my favorite cities in India, I'm saying it with confidence, and people believe me because there are often times when I will say what I believe in and what I don't. So confidence is important. Transparency is really important as well in everything you're doing. Transparency, being clear who paid for what, what's part of the story that's being told, who's involved, all of that. That transparency is important. And then number 5, a word that Kiruba used as well, generosity. Please be generous on social media. Everyone thinks social media is about me, and it often is, but post about other people. I like to think that 1 out of 5 posts should be about other people. And that's very difficult for folks to do, right? There's another formula you may have heard, 4-1-1. Of every 6 posts, 4 should be about other people and other projects. It doesn't have to be about your direct competitor, but it should be about other people and other projects. 2, the last 2, 1 should be a deep, rich post about you and something you're working on. And the last one could be something more personal that's part of what you're trying to do. So 4-1-1 is another formula that you can use, but be generous in what you're talking about. You had a whole presentation about why diversity matters from Angela, and diversity counts, right? One of the best things I can tell you about this conference is how diverse it is, right? We've got lots of women speakers, we got speakers from around the world. Hey, in America the problem is there are too many white male speakers. Here, white males are in a minority, but we have them, that's good. And so thinking about that, whereas in India, you look at most conferences, and they're mostly all-male panels and all-male workshops, and it's a problem. A couple of years ago, I promised my then 14-year-old daughter I would not speak on any all-male panels. And that happened because I was on a panel, I was at a conference where there were only 2 men. And so I was trying to lean in, and we talked about that. As soon as that happened, I also said I won't attend any all-male panels. And it really makes a difference, right? It's in the hands of the men. When you are invited to a panel, you ask them who else is speaking. And say no thanks and you step away. Or give them a name of a great woman instead of you. You control this. It's not up to the women, it's up to the men who are invited to speak, to ask how many people are going to be speaking, who's going to be there. So this had its own snowball effect. I got way too much credit for this. And the 5 leading speakers in Australia, all men, promised not to speak on all-male panels. I got invited to speak on CNN about this, which is kind of crazy that I became the face of this for a moment in America. And because this is Google Slides, everything you see so far on Google Slides, you can click and watch and read, and that's the advantage of Google Slides over any of the other products. And so there's now something in America called the Gender Avenger. I'd love for you to write it down, genderavenger.com. And you can take a pledge, the men and women in this room. It's a free website. You take a pledge that you will not speak on any all-male panels. Imagine if every conference organizer and every conference goer took this pledge, right? We have so much power in this room. You guys organize events all the time. genderavenger.com. Take a look at that. It's very powerful. And I think the problem here, though, is that women have been saying the same thing for 20 years. And it took some guys to say this and become a big thing, right? So the problem is embedded in the solution, which is embedded in the problem, that people pay attention to the men who make a fuss about this rather than the women, and that's a problem. Number 7, there are only 8 of these, is there are 3 attributes for effective digital projects: simple, useful, delightful. Simple, useful, delightful. Most of our agencies, when we sit down and our brands, we're making things, those are not the first 3 words, right? How do we make it as complicated as possible? We never think of making it delightful. Let's think of that in every digital project we do. And then finally, the last thing is work on your social. And so I'm going to give you a few social media tips, and then I'll be in conversation with Resham. And I should also tell you that Amit has set up in the meal venue a section called Throw Things at Sree, where you can come meet me and throw things at me or ask me any questions. I'm happy to look over your social media, give you some feedback or some tips on your project, whatever. We can meet in small groups or one-on-one, and I'll be there for a little while. So what social media can do for you, can help you find new ideas, trends, and opportunities. Well, I think we have a jumbo jet taking off right next door. Connect with audiences in deeper ways. It can help you bring eyeballs, attention, and traffic to your work, and help create and enhance your brand. Social media does not make your brand, right? Social media amplifies who you are. Those are the good things about social. Let's look at some of the bad problems on social. By the way, anybody here use Bitmoji? Anyone, any Bitmoji fans here? Everyone should get a Bitmoji account. It's a free app. It was the #1 app on the Apple Store last year, App Store last year, and now in 2017. And it allows you to make these personalized gifts, personalized emoji. And I love this because my emoji has more hair and is thinner, so I like that. So you can all do this. The cleverness of it is really brilliant in the way they do it. Anyway, so you know what FOMO is, right? Fear of missing out. That's why we want you to share what's happening here, Praxis7 hashtag, so that everybody feels FOMO about missing this. We can blame every societal ill on social media, and so that's something that you can do. But I want to take a second to talk about tech neck. You all know what that is? Tech neck comes from all of us looking down at our phones like this all the time, right? And our necks were not meant to hold the weight of a bowling ball like this, right? So this is the backs of our neck are weak. And you don't need to, do what I do. I like to walk about 10 to 20 kilometers a day. I walk everywhere I go, and I do all my meetings as walking meetings, and I walk at airports, but I always walk like this. And I look really crazy like I'm videotaping everybody, but it's saving my neck. You don't need to do this. What you can do is just, even if you angle your phone 10 to 15 degrees, you'll save your neck, 10 to 15 degrees. But I'm also going to give you a new tip that I learned from someone who specializes in helping people with this problem. So here's what you're going to do. Will everybody just sit up straight for a second? Everybody sit up straight. Take 2 fingers like this. And I know in some cultures this is some kind of gali, so just please forgive me if it is, okay? So take 2 fingers like this. Put it on your chin. Another curse probably somewhere, okay? Put this on your chin. Don't push up, but push back. Push back. Do you feel the strain on the back of your neck? Do you all feel that? Don't push up, push back like this. So what you're doing is you're building the back of your neck muscles. And what you'll do is once you do that more and more, it gets stronger and you'll save yourself years of problems, right? So sit up and just do this. If you're driving a car, you just push on the backrest. Every time you're driving, just push like this and it'll build that muscle at the back of your neck. So please do that and you'll benefit from it. And just try this. Now the other thing is we're always in meetings looking at our phones under the desk. Everyone knows you're texting. Everyone knows you're on WhatsApp and other things. Just pull the phone out and be proud that you're doing it. It's not worth ruining your neck. Everybody's talking about you're doing it anyway. Now there's some quick rapid fire social media tips. It's not who follows you on Twitter that matters. It's who follows you that matters. Meaning let's get more influential followers rather than just chasing the raw numbers. You can of course get raw numbers, but think about getting influential followers. I have a tool called Triangulate that I recommend to people that will tell you your top 100 followers on Twitter. It's a fantastic tool at Triangulate. You can just write it down and test it yourself. It'll tell you who your 100 biggest followers are. A couple of thoughts on Facebook, and maybe when Resham and I are talking, we'll talk more about it, but a couple of quick things. One is the Facebook legacy contact. Who here has implemented that? Raise your hand. Like 3 people. All of you should do this. It gives your Facebook account access to somebody when you die, and you'll say, this is not important, but I was at funerals of 2 people, including a very well-known Indian journalist in America who died at 67. He didn't have it, and a 14-year-old girl, she didn't have it either. And at the worst moment of their families was made worse by not having Facebook legacy contact. So please do this. So I'm going to make 3 requests for you. 1, please do it. 2, please warn the person before you do it, because they'll think you're dying. That's why you're giving them this. And 3rd, don't make me your Facebook legacy contact. Every time I do this, there's some smart guys and gals in the room who say, oh, you cared this much? Lo, you do it. You do it, right? So please don't make me do it. Do your own Facebook legacy contact. The second is the See First feature, which allows you to pick anyone, up to 30 brands and 30 individuals, and hit See First. So you'll see their content first. It's a game changer on Facebook. When we complain that Facebook's algorithm shows us things we don't want to see, it's our fault. Just the way on Twitter, if you complain that Twitter is boring, it's because you're following boring people. If Twitter is too noisy, too much drama on there, you're following people filled with drama, right? So you control it and you have no excuse. I'm a big fan of Facebook Live. I think it's a very interesting storytelling tool. I've done 500 of these, and I learn from them every time I do it. You have to practice. I do the strange thing where I read the New York Times aloud on Facebook Live every Sunday morning in New York, about 6 p.m. in India. So if you're ever bored and you want to take a nap, you can watch me read with people from the New York Times and other guests on a regular basis. We have thousands of people who watch around the world. So please join us any evening, Sunday evening at 6 o'clock. And through that, I've gotten to meet really interesting people. Some of you know who the man on the left is, and some of you have no idea. If you know the man on the left, you know his name is DJ Khaled. He's one of the biggest influential people in America. I didn't know who he was, and I was calling him DJ Khaled. And my son was like, what's wrong with you? He's DJ Khaled. That's what his name is, but that was a problem. Also think about social media outside of social media platforms. There's a terrific journalist and writer in America named Anil Dash, Anil, D-A-S-H, on Twitter. Tweet at him and say, we're talking about your praxis. And he does great work outside of social, right? He has a wonderful playlist on Spotify, for example. Think about how you can do that. In a Snapchat world, I like to say that email still matters, and really building out an email newsletter, I think, still works in the world. I want to make a plea again for LinkedIn. I believe it's the most underappreciated of all the social networks. No network gives you the kind of data you're seeing on stage. If you're far away, you probably can't read it, but it tells you where people watch from, how many CEOs saw your content, what cities. It's really useful. But as I champion LinkedIn everywhere I go, I'm not the biggest champion of LinkedIn. I'm not even the biggest Indian champion of LinkedIn. Who in the world has the biggest faith in LinkedIn? Anybody know? Yes, a Hyderabad native named Satya Nadella, right? What did he do? He spent $26 billion on LinkedIn. All I'm doing is asking you to use it. Everybody should get better at LinkedIn. Please play with it, practice it. You'll find it more useful for you. Just take your existing post from Twitter and throw it on there and see the stats that come up. You saw that very few people are comfortable on it. There's so much opportunity on LinkedIn. And just yesterday, they relaunched the LinkedIn Groups functionality, which had collapsed because Facebook improved it. So they've improved yours, and so you can try it. So last thing before I get off the stage here, or at least go sit there with Racham, is my social media success formula. So this is a formula. You'll want to take a photo of this, folks. You'll want to have this. And it's a series of words we're going to say out loud together. And let's see here if... we're just going to make sure that you can, I'm hoping you can see this. Can you read those words? Yeah? Okay. So we're going to say this out loud as if we were in a Catholic church on Sunday led by a Hindu priest. All right? Hyderabad's a very multicultural city, so it works. Okay, so we're going to start with the word helpful and just read it together. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. Okay, so we'll start with the word helpful and just go down. Ready? And go. That was terrible, guys. Come on. All right. One more time, really loud. Louder. I can't hear you. Louder. Sing it, sister. Say it, brother. Amen. You've never been to a Hindu Catholic priest? That's what we do. So this is not saying all your posts have to be all of these things, but all your posts need to be some of these things. I said the scarcest resource is human attention, and you gave me 40 plus minutes of your attention. Thank you very much, everybody. Hi.
So we just had the success mantra that you shared with us, and authenticity as a word that strike out. So there is so much emphasis on storytelling. Do you think that brands are rushing to deliver stories at the risk of losing authenticity?
Yeah, I think that you have to be really careful about storytelling because it's become kind of a cliche, right? So there are two kinds of meetings I tell PR people to be very careful of. Don't go to any meeting where it says viral campaign, right? Because whenever you do that, it's almost never going to be a viral campaign. So don't go to those meetings. And when they say we're going to do storytelling, if they say they're going to do storytelling, then it is likely to be a cliche and something that doesn't work. So I would be very wary of that.
Yeah. And do you think is easy media access fueling to these short-sighted stories? Easy media access that we have today.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but let's look at it in a kind of positive way. I think there are lots of opportunities for folks to do storytelling, but do it in ways that are more inventive, more creative. The tools have become so easy that there's no reason we shouldn't be doing it that way.
Okay. So you said 3 qualities of a communicator: confidence, transparency, and generosity. Yeah. So an article talking about your Facebook post when you were moving on from one of your roles said that control the narrative by setting it free. Okay, so I think it's a little bit of paradoxical statement. And should brands be making themselves vulnerable on social media?
Well, I think that brands, so it's much easier now that it's happened. I can tell you that I was not ready to tell people I lost my job. It was just not something you do. I didn't expect the reaction my father-in-law had and the immense support I got from him or my parents or my family and friends around the world. And so on a personal level, it's different. Brands are taught not to be vulnerable because there's a kind of, you have to be brave and strong, and that's what you're projecting. But I think that, especially when you're in trouble, being clear that what you did and what happened, I think is the least that you can do nowadays. It's become much harder to hide behind all kinds of shenanigans. So if things go wrong, be clear that things have gone wrong.
Okay. And we have all sat down on the premise that attention deficit is something that we all have in the social media age. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey on transition from the Metropolitan Museum, from a physical one to a digital one? And parallelly, you were also developing a personal brand for yourself. Are there any learnings you would like to share with us, and how was that experience overall?
Sure. The way you go from a digital brand, a physical brand to a digital brand is not obvious, and something that a lot of people work on, and I know there are a lot of digital transformation experts in the room, and I hope you'll meet them and listen to them. I think that digital transformation is something that every organization has to go through. So in my new life, running a consultancy, what I like to say is that you have your in-life footprint, right? Of you're a great brand, you do important things, you have a great product, a great service. And on the other hand, you have your digital footprint, and it doesn't match. And if those two things don't match, you're leaving opportunities on the table, you're leaving money on the table. And so you need to work on that. At the Met, what we did was we said, how do we make a 145-year-old organization relevant in the smartphone age? And among the things we did was try to tap into the millennials without alienating our existing base, which is a thing all brands have. So the Met, most of you will not know it, but it's one of the world's great museums. And I ran a 70-person digital team inside the Met. And you can imagine that's a really large team for a museum. But our idea was that we have to tell the stories of the Met. So when people would ask me what my job is at the Met, I would say it's to tell 1 million+ stories about our 1 million+ pieces of art to 1 billion people. And how do we make that connection? How do we get our art seen by everybody everywhere? Because the Met is the world's largest encyclopedic museum, meaning all art from the entire world is represented there. And how do we do that on a regular basis? So that's one of the things we worked on.
While you were working on that, one of the biggest challenge our industry today faces is the measurement of the efficiency of any outreach. Everybody has different parameters, there are different jargons that come with it. How do you define a successful storytelling?
Yeah, one of the, I said, I have a whole list of kind of original sins of social and digital media. I told you the follower count is one sin. The other is video views, right? You know that how many seconds does Facebook count as a view?
6 seconds.
Not 6. 3 seconds it counts as a view, right? Imagine that 3 seconds, even 6 is great compared to 3, right? It's double that. It's ridiculous that as an industry, we have accepted it. Why? Just because Facebook decided it's 3 seconds? What happens in 3 seconds? Nothing, right? It's just too short a time, but we have accepted that. So these metrics and numbers that all these organizations are paying, I mean, the advertisers in the room, you're paying millions of rupees for this data that is flawed because the original sin is you're counting 3 seconds as a view, right? Or the impressions which are just kind of not real in that sense. So those are things that I think are part of the problem. But we're all looking for ROI, right? Return on investment. How do we do this? And what I tell brands is that there's an opportunity here for us that playing in the space of social and digital will pay off because that's where the next generation is going. So, even the topic for this conversation, storytelling in a digital age, like everything is digital and everything is going to be digital. I think in India, we are comfortable because there's so much print still around. Magazines and television and newspapers and all of that, right? In Hyderabad, we have 12 newspapers. In New York, we have 2, right? 2 or 3 newspapers. Like that scale is so different. So I keep warning journalists and advertisers that the print industry is going to go through the same crisis we had in America. In America, we've lost 25,000 newspaper jobs, which is, imagine in India, if 25,000 journalists lost their jobs, there'd be riots on the streets. Right? But in the American system, it kind of all gets absorbed. And American gatherings of journalists, it's like being at a funeral often.
So that brings me to an interesting question. How much credibility do you think traditional media carries? Because when I look at my teams and traditional media is something that I bank on heavily because it cannot be bought. Somebody will do a quick thorough check on you, or your company, who is speaking. Whereas I'm the master of my own will when it comes to my social handles. I can ask people to write, and it's not that difficult. So how do you think, what are the essence or fundamentals of traditional media that will never be replaced by digital media?
Well, I think the main thing, as you said, is there's a lot more credibility in many many print products, and there are so many good print organizations out there. But there are also really good digital companies doing digital media. So we have to, if you're a brand, you have to invest in understanding which are the good ones, who's doing really, like the amount of data journalism being done here and things that I'm reading, something called India Spend, some of you know. Have you seen that, what they do? It's really impressive. And that kind of stuff, I think we need to take the best of print and the best of digital and marry it together. One of my colleagues coined a term, the tradigital communications. Tradigital, meaning traditional with a digital overlay. And I think PR people need to be tradigital. You have to be really good at all the things you had to do in the old days, but you have to have this digital overlay of everything you're doing.
And storytelling and fake news, how do you think they are different sometimes?
Well, what I say is that the social media companies did not understand social media. Facebook didn't understand it, Twitter didn't understand it, YouTube didn't understand it. Because if they understood social media, there would be no fake news, there would be no Russian trolls, and there would be no President Donald J. Trump. He understood Facebook better than Facebook. And you saw what he did, right? And see what's happened, and you can see where America is today and the situation America is in. So I think that the people who are doing the fake news in America that resulted in him getting elected, I have great admiration for them. I hate them, but I have admiration for what they were able to do. So what they would do, you might know the story, right? They would post as if, so for example, they would say we're going to target black voters, African Americans, to keep them from coming to vote, right? We don't want them to vote. So what would they do? They would post a video about Beyonce and say something very positive about Beyonce. The people who are most likely to like it are black people, so they would like it. So instantly they knew that these are the people you don't want, these are African American, we don't want them to vote. So what they would do is 2 days before the election, they would post a series of stories that would say, no need to vote, don't go to vote, there's no point voting, all of that. So that they were doing storytelling, and it is almost evil what they did, but they were successful.
So it is easy to tame human mind with influence like this.
Yeah, sure.
So what is your idea of digital utopia? Assuming the cybersecurity and privacy has been taken care of, what do you believe is the digital utopia?
Well, I'd like to have Wi-Fi everywhere, right? Free Wi-Fi everywhere. I think we could all get behind that. Data plans that are cheaper. I would like some of the things that you have in India, that you have better access to, I've learned things coming here, right? Over the years, I would try to teach Indians about voicemail, and Indians don't do voicemail, right? You'll just say missed call. So I took this missed call technology back to America. It didn't quite work. They couldn't understand it. So when I would try to explain to an Indian why you should use missed calls, why you should use voicemail, they'll say, there's no reason to, and I didn't understand that till very recently, why they're good. I also think that some of the features of some of the products, I wish they were in all the products, and my favorite one is on WhatsApp. The idea on WhatsApp that there's a lot of drama on WhatsApp, right? We all have cousins who are sending us good morning posts, right? Every morning, there are like 200 million Indians send good morning to each other. And Silicon Valley has to adjust at WhatsApp from 6 to 8 a.m. in India time because there are too many of all of us sending these messages. And so one of the things WhatsApp allows you to do, and you all know this, I learned from one of my Indian friends, is that you can pin 3 chats to the top of your feed. Imagine if you could pin 10 chats. So the 3 most important chats are pinned to the top by just right swiping, right? And so once you do that, you have the 3 best ones. All the drama then is below that. Imagine if you could do 5 or 10. Why not email? Why not on SMS? If all of them had that same feature, it'd be great. So my utopia would be where consumers and the tech companies work together to say, we want these features to exist, and we want to use them.
So building on what we were talking about, that all of us sitting here are storytellers in one form or the other. It's an individual right. At the same time, most of us are also building stories for our brands, right? We might not have even lived those brands, but we're making stories for them. That's the hard reality. How should both of them be approached? Individual storytelling and brand storytelling by the same person with the same set of ideas, perceived notions. How do we do that?
It's not easy, right? So I think that we can think a little bit more about what we all need to do. I hope I made it clear that there are 2 things we're trying to do, right? We're trying to tell the story, and then we're trying to get the story seen by our audience. And you know what happened last year on Facebook. It was like a apocalypse when they turned down the publisher brands, they reduced the value of brands on Facebook, right? A lot of traffic crashed. And what is the lesson for all of us in that? That we need to respond to these brands by not using them as a crutch. Anytime you get addicted to something that they give you, you are now in their grasp. They want you to pay for all that use of Facebook, right? They want to pay per post, and they want you to boost all your posts and all that. All the brands are doing that. And so what we need to do is we need to be better at our own social media. And that's why I ask all of you to practice your social media, get better at it so that when you're posting, people see it. Or when you're posting for your brand isn't just the brand, but individuals. One of the things I'm shocked to see is that most people working at a company don't read their own company's social media. They're not even friends or fans of, or they don't even hit like on their official company accounts because that's not the culture, right? We don't, in orientation, nobody says, please like our Facebook, please like our Twitter, in the onboarding process of employees. Why not do that see first on Facebook? Imagine if everybody in your company, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, all did see first. Then your content would be seen by your own employees who could then share it. So those are some things that I would work on.
So we'll just quickly do a quick rapid fire with Sree, and all of you can get involved in this as well. Please think about these questions because sometimes in our day-to-day lives we don't. And this year we have a massive, participation from Copcoms as well. So the first question for me is that a brand that has nailed storytelling as per you.
Yeah, I think you saw Angela talk about Nike and what they have done worldwide, Amul, there's so many examples, we know them. The ones that resonate with us, that tell a story that we expect, I hadn't thought about Amul in a while, and then when Vajpayee died, they had an ad for him, and it just kind of came back. All the hundreds of ads over the years kind of just kind of washed over me. And I think that that's really what we have to think about. There's so many brands like that.
If you could time travel, which is that one project you would redo in your career and why?
Oh, well, there's too many of those things, right? I would have, whenever people ask me to predict the future, I said I wish I could go back in time, and I would have invested in some of these companies that are now, of course, very successful. In terms of my own work, I wish that I had understood the role that I and others played in the trouble that American media is in now. We in America told our journalists that you only need to worry about the product. Don't worry about the business side. The business side is different. And Americans were not prepared for what happened. American workers are the only workers, journalism workers are the only workers in the world who don't understand the means of production, and therefore they didn't pay attention. So I wish I had done much more to sound the alarm when the digital transformation happened, that we had a role to play, and it's my fault and a lot of other people's fault.
So if you could have only one app on your phone, which would that be?
Oh my God, oh, don't say that.
You've always been telling us about new applications, new things. One app.
I have it all arranged very nicely on my phone. When you come to my set, if you stop by to see me later, I can show you, but there isn't one thing I could...
Pick one, Sree.
There isn't anything that I could avoid because I need all of them, but I love I count my steps using a tool called Gyroscope, which some of you may have seen, so I love that.
So there is none then?
No, there's not one, I couldn't say that.
So in a world without internet, what would you be?
What are you saying? A world without internet? Well, I'm almost 50 years old, so I am not somebody who grew up in the internet, so I definitely understand how to live in a non-internet world. I subscribe to newspapers and magazines in America. I read the print edition of the New York Times on Facebook Live. So I think that I certainly hope we don't go back to it. There's always a chance that there's some digital storm or physical storm that takes out the internet. I hope it doesn't happen, or the Russians might do it, but I hope it doesn't happen.
No, but what would you be?
What would I be if in a non-internet world? Oh, I don't.
Somebody told me a cow in Kobe. A cow in Kobe, because they feed you, they feed you like a princess.
Right.
Like you'll have beer. In the end, you'll be slaughtered, of course.
Yeah.
But at least you'll live your life.
Yeah. So I don't know what I'd be. I always wanted to be a journalist, and I wanted to be a writer, and so I'd probably be some kind of writer, but just not on the internet.
So how do you feel about the digital audience today? You've seen the transformation in the millennials. The generations are changing very quickly. How do you feel about the digital audience, and how smart have they become?
Well, I think that
we still don't understand fake news. It took us a while, and now there are startups coming up talking about that this is how you can distinguish between a real news and a fake news.
Yeah, well, the problem is that what we see as fake news today is nothing compared to what's coming, right? You've seen what the kind of the deep fakes that are coming, where you can take someone's head and put it on video and make the video look seamless of someone doing something that they didn't do. You'll say, seeing is believing. You'll see them speaking, but they're not them. It's fake in the level to which we're not ready for. So I think we should be very worried about what's coming, and no one's ready for it. the changes that have happened in the last 10 years have been so dramatic, especially in a country like India, but it's going to be even more dramatic and faster and more consequential to all of us than what we have now.
So there are a lot of online challenges that keep on coming, and a lot of brands harp on that.
Yeah.
You know,
Challenges,
hashtags,
yeah.
challenges.
The ice bucket
ice
challenge.
bucket challenge, and of course, it's one way to create awareness by doing something drastic or something as little as ice bucket. But how do you believe that this is going to impact us in the long run? Everything that we do on social media, nobody will remember, is the first statement that you said.
Yeah.
So why does this happen? How did the trend start? Can you throw a little light on us for that?
Yeah, so we've seen things like the Ice Bucket Challenge and the Kiki Challenge with the guys who
And DDLE challenge these days.
There was so many different challenges. I would say to all brands that be very careful as you jump on these because they are of the moment and they work in some cases, but we've seen lots of blowback to brands who jumped in at the wrong time or jumped in that was not in keeping with their brand. And if it's done from a position of authenticity, people are okay with it. When it's contrived and you try to kind of force it in like a shoehorn, when you shoehorn something in, it's uncomfortable. And
so
that's why
every web series that is produced these days, almost every web series have their own hashtag, have their own challenges, do this, do that. Yeah. Somehow this, and our audience does that. Sometimes it's paid, it's influencers, but people do that. And personally, I don't believe that it is any form of media that my brand would like to have, but we still do it.
Right.
So how do you feel that do we have to come up with something that is more authentic? Do we need to do something that is drastically different? Is this digital audience sitting here today can do something to make a difference in it?
Well, I think so. I think that you certainly can. I learn everything about media from my 15-year-old twins. Durga and Krishna, they teach me everything I know about any challenges or anything that are going on in the digital world. When I don't know something, I just ask. And so I feel like every day I'm doing a digital download from them to teach me about all these things that are out there.
So this was my time. Thank you, Sree. It has been a pleasure.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.